as you know, given a lot of money to Gaza for food and everything else. A lot of that money is stolen by Hamas, and a lot of the food is stolen. But we're very much involved. I don't know. I mean, based on television, I would say not particularly, because those children look very hungry. But we're giving a lot of money and a lot of food, and other nations are now stepping up.
All right. This just coming into us, meantime, the new statement from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying while the situation in Gaza is difficult and Israel's been working to ensure aid delivery, Hamas benefits from attempting to fuel the perception of a humanitarian crisis. As such, they've been releasing unverified numbers to the news media while circulating images that are carefully staged or manipulated by Hamas. Let's talk about this. We're joined in studio by Ofir Akunis, who's the Consul General for Israel here in New York. And, you know, we warned our viewers, we showed some of them, some of those images from Gaza are quite disturbing. And is that the argument from the Israeli government that that's not the real situation? There's no starvation?
No. There's no starvation in the Gaza Strip. Now I want to talk about the Hamas lies and to show you all. Yeah, this is Osama al-Rakab.
Okay.
He suffers from cystic fibrosis and he is currently being treated in Italy. He is not starving in Gaza. We must call out this lie. I'm sick and tired from the Hamas lies. They cross all the red lines. We are talking about a terror organization who invaded to the state of Israel, murdered people, burned them alive, raped women, and now they are there to talk about starvation while they know the truth. And the truth is that they are stealing all the humanitarian aid that Israel started to ship into Gaza from November 2023. Enough with the lies.
So President Trump seems to see it, let me play another comment from him, a little bit differently when he's being asked about it. So I want you to respond to this when he's overseas, talking about people. We see pictures, not just the ones like you distributed to us here, but the ones that are shown in international media, people lined up for food. And the president made the following comments on those lines in Gaza. Let's listen.
And whether they're set up by Hamas or whoever, but they're very strict lines, so we have to get rid of those lines. But we're going to be getting some good, strong food. We can save a lot of people. I mean, some of those kids that's real starvation stuff. I see it. And you can't fake that. So we're going to be even more involved.
I think, pro-Israel president of the United States, should be fair to describe President Trump in that regard, saying that's real starvation.
They will not be hungry if the Hamas will not steal the humanitarian aid.
But you just said there was no starvation.
No, there is no starvation. I insist that there is no starvation in the Gaza Strip.
Isn't it one or the other, though, to be fair? Like there's either starvation, and it's because Hamas is allegedly stealing the aid, or there's starvation. Are people... You know, when we see these pictures, they're not all doctored, are they, Ofir? Like this little boy here. I mean, I don't know. I don't know the situation.
They need to give the humanitarian aid to the Gazans.
Because there are people starving. There are people suffering.
They're not starving. I cannot accept the word starvation. This is a word that Hamas took like I will tell you, it's like the Nazis' propaganda, to take words and to repeat the lie time after time after time. Now, I want your producer to...
let me ask you this.
No, I want the producer to show us the pictures, the photos from Gaza City. The markets are open. There's a lot of vegetables. The restaurant in Gaza City are open.
No, but I'm going to ask you that. What's happening in that picture?
Do you think that it's a real picture? Proof.
What's happening?
Give me a proof.
Well, let me bring up a wider
Give me a proof that this is a real picture.
That actually brings up a larger question I want to ask you about as calmly as possible. I wanted to ask you that because...
Because by the way, this is a lie. So who is saying that it's from the Gaza Strip? Who is saying it? The Hamas?
When you want to have independent verification of something in a war zone, what's the best way to do it? In my view, the best way to do it always is to have independent journalists in that war zone who are not taking sides, are going to be able to tell the story. My friend and colleague Geraldo Rivera, who has experience reporting for many, many years in Gaza, talked earlier about the fact that he and I were in this discussion about we don't think there's enough people doing just that right now. And here's part of what Geraldo said.
Israel is not well served with the censorship. They're keeping out the press. If they let people in, I mean, I think NewsNation is extremely fair. Why not let NewsNation into Gaza? Let fair reporters with no parochial or partisan axe to grind see these things with their own eyes and let them report it to the world.
Not just embedded with an IDF unit.
Okay, this is a good idea. I must agree with him.
So why
this
hasn't
is a good
Israel
idea.
allowed more?
Maybe we'll start to do it. No, first of all, there's tons of humanitarian aid, and if the United Nations will not disturb the mechanism of the American company to give it to the Gazans, and if the Hamas will not shoot people and then they will blame Israel, as I said 5 minutes ago or even less, I'm sick and tired from Hamas lies. They're shooting the people, they're stealing the humanitarian aid, and they dare to blame Israel. Enough is enough. I'm not afraid of them. I'm not afraid from the truth, and I'll put the truth on the table. And I don't know where these photos are from.
Is Israel, many of those coming from the few, as I said, international journalistic organizations that are in there, newswires and the like, that are putting out many of these pictures. But to the earlier point, and you said you conceded that point, that maybe there should be more of that. So there's a more, what you would see as balanced view, right?
I will tell you, first of all, it will be a good idea to reflect the truth and not to take these fake photos and use them against Israel.
Are you saying all of those photos?
I don't know if all of them, but a lot of them, yes. This is the Hamas fault. All of these photos are the Hamas fault. It's not Israel's fault that they're stealing the humanitarian aid, because we are giving a lot of humanitarian aid.
Again, those are two separate accusations.
No, it's not. I think it's this is the whole story.
Hear me out for one moment. I always, you're well respected here.
Yeah,
plenty of time to talk on this.
Yeah.
That if you're saying on the one hand that it's Hamas's fault, my assumption in picking up what you're saying is that the result of what's happening, in other words, the pictures that we're watching that seem to my eyes show what I would describe as starvation, certainly a desperate humanitarian situation, is the fault of Hamas. That's different than saying it's not going on, which is what you said earlier.
No, but first of all, I don't know if it's real pictures, because I just gave you an example that it's a fake, photos that they are actually giving to you and to their own international.
Is Israel
media.
changing anything in its policy approach? This new statement, I was looking at some of the statement from the Prime Minister, continue to work with international agencies as well as the U.S., try to ensure the large amounts of humanitarian aid flow in. So is Israel doing anything differently now?
There's more humanitarian aid, and our hope is that Hamas will not steal the humanitarian aid anymore. The Gazans must put them under pressure.
Do you have
and
proof
to use
that's happening, by the way? I asked
all the
because
time.
of that New York Times
What?
article that said, citing Israeli officials, that there's no proof that it's happening on a widespread basis. I know people say all the time, oh, Hamas is stealing, and it's been going on for years. Do you have proof?
I don't need to prove to the New York Times anything. I know the truth, and I don't know who is this source that they gave them this, I don't know, headline.
They said it was in your government.
I don't know. Okay, they said.
But
okay,
you're saying you have proof. Are you going to present that?
We know the truth because our forces, some of them are saying it to me, combat soldiers who returned from Gaza, and they're saying to me, the Hamas is stealing all the humanitarian aid, like, they're using their mobs, they're using their weapon to threat the Gazans, and from time to time, they're actually shouting, there is shouts again against the Gazans, and then they're saying it's Israel's fault. No, it's not. And October 7th, it's not Israel's fault. It's Hamas' fault. And I have to tell you, if the Western world wants that Israel will win this battle, this clash, the Western world must stand with Israel and not with a terror organization.
Do you think you're losing that public relations war, for lack of a better term, right now? I was speaking to former Ambassador John Bolton about that yesterday, and he's again been another pro-Israel voice over the years, and that was his basic take on it.
Yeah, I'm not talking about PR issues. I'm talking about the truth. I'm talking about the two main goals, and I want to refresh your mind and your colleagues that there are still 50 hostages in the Gaza Strip, and they are suffering from starvation.
So does any of this help, or is there any progress being made and getting them out. I mean, that is it. You're right.
You just heard, I'm sorry that you didn't show the clip that President Trump, he just said, I think it was Friday morning in Scotland, that this is the Hamas fault, that there's no hostage deal. And I said it to you time after time, that we are willing to do a lot in the Gaza Strip, even to withdraw from a few areas for this deal. And the president said the truth. It's only Hamas' fault.
The pauses that you're putting in place now. So that is that.
Well, yeah, various ideas that we have, and the cabinet already approved. And Hamas, with the Qataris, by the way, I don't know, where are the Qataris now? They need to put Hamas under pressure. They are playing their double game
Well, the U.S.
time
pulled
after
out
time.
of those talks, right? Steve Witkoff last week in Doha.
Why? Because the Qataris with Hamas are doing nothing to progress the hostage deal. That's the truth.
So as you look at this big picture, I think what a lot of people, they're going to see all this back and forth. They want to see, and even the president, this is sort of the way he put it, we want to see this stop. We want to see the fighting stop.
You're right.
And couldn't it be that many things could be true at once? That, yeah, of course, October 7th was Hamas's fault, and it's been condemned. But also, what's happening now is not a very good situation at all.
I will tell you,
Israel's played some part in it.
It will be an even worse situation if Israel withdraw from the Gaza Strip while the Hamas will still remain in power. That will be, that will bring us to another October 7th. That thing will not happen. The Hamas terrorists will not be in the Gaza Strip at all, not nearby or near the or in the Philadelphia corridor, or not in the other side. And the fact that they are still there, so that's the truth. That's actually we continue to be there to prevent the next October 7th.
Are you worried about Trump at all with those comments? I mean, he said, you told me there's no starvation. He says that's real starvation. You worried that Trump is going to pull some support, and if so, what would be?
We appreciate the Trump's administration from the very first day that he took office, and we are talking with the President Trump, with his aides, and we are doing whatever we can to continue the humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip. By the way, I don't remember even one Western country who gave humanitarian aid to the Nazis during the Second World War. If you remember, please tell me.
More journalists, though, inside.
I don't remember. I don't remember.
More journalists, though, you think would be a good thing. More journalists, more storytelling. You would open more of that. And some of what we saw, I'm going to wrap this up. I appreciate all your time. We try to give you as much time as always, every time you've been out for months.
I'm here.
This is the...
I'm not afraid from the truth, and I will not apologize to the Hamas terror organization.
I understand.
I will not do it, and I will not accept their lies.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Like, it's a fact. Okay, so someone said that it's not true. I'm telling you the truth.
Sometimes it's percentages, though, and a lot of things are true, all at the same time. And that, okay, maybe there was a picture that someone doctored. Maybe that's true. But also, maybe it's true that a lot of these little kids we saw
are very sorry.
Struggling.
We are very sorry.
Are really starving.
I will tell you, they publish every day press releases from the Ministry of Health in Gaza.
Yeah, which is run by Hamas.
When we know exactly.
I know.
So if you believe the Hamas lies, okay,
I'm asking, but no, I'm saying about the pictures.
I don't believe them.
Even if I believe that some of those were lies, I would say, you know what? Some of those are probably true too. That both, maybe there was some stuff that was made up. Maybe.
So there is a lot of
okay, but maybe some of it is also true. That
so there's a lot.
Those people are really hungry people that are desperate that want help.
Okay, so as I said, if the Hamas will not steal the humanitarian aid, they will not be hungry.
So Israel doesn't play any part in that or any role in that?
Israel?
No, in terms of helping them now.
No, we are doing whatever we can to help them, to support them, and we
are helping. No, but I'm saying
we are doing a lot.
Netanyahu is saying that, so you're going to help them out. So you are helping, is what you're saying. But now you're saying
of course,
no. So
because we are human beings. Because Israel is not the Hamas. We are not stealing the humanitarian aid. We are shipping the humanitarian aid.
Right.
So that's what we are doing. And there's a lot of criticism in Israel, against the cabinet, the government, because the last decisions. And we are still doing it. Why? Because we don't want them to be hungry.
Right.
But if there is starvation, there is no.
There is no starvation.
Exactly.
But you're caught on the word, I understand. You're saying they're hungry, but there's no starvation. That's the distinction you're trying to make?
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand.
Yeah.
So you're saying hungry, desperate people, but you're not comfortable with
Maybe, of course, we can see that there is hungry people in the Gaza Strip, but there is no campaign to starve the Gazans in the Gaza Strip. And that's what the Hamas is telling you, that we are doing it in purpose. And the truth is totally different. Actually, it's the opposite.
Okay, that last part, I'm sorry for asking the same question many times, but I was...
I will give you the same answer.
I was legitimately confused by your first answer, and that last part, at least from your point of view to me, that...
I will give you the same answer.
Okay.
I will not apologize to the Hamas, and I continue to say that they are lying from their very first day, actually.
Ofir, thank you for coming
Thank you.
and answering all the questions.
Thank you very much.
The difficult questions, because they're difficult images, and
The truth is difficult.
we'll continue to have the conversation.
The truth
try
is
to get the
difficult.
truth.
I know it's better
Hopefully-
to believe the Hamas lies rather than the Israeli truth. I know
More
it.
reporting inside of Gaza,
Yes.
like we talked about. Let's take a quick break. And,
Thank you.
We'll come right back.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.